Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being able to make it for this panel discussion. So there is one of us that we are waiting for, so let's give it 2 more minutes and then we begin. Meanwhile, be ready to be amazed. Good morning once again. Thank you very much for being patient with us. It's a Sunday morning, so it's been a long 2 days. All the panelists here have been quite active within the workshop, so it happens, and it's been human. So thank you again for making the sacrifice to be here, and thank you for those who will be watching us online during the Kalasha Market International Film and TV Market in 2022. And with me, I have a very amazing panel. No, let's give them a clap. They are all experts in their particular fields, so we've got for you some interesting discussions about how our animators and gamers have opportunities that they can be able to use and take advantage of. And so I'd just like us to start off with just 10 seconds introduction of each of us. So we'll start with myself and continue all the way down. So my name is Dennis Muthia. I'll be your moderator. I am an animator and a game designer and the head of department of the Rubica ADMI video game development department. And it's amazing to be here with these amazing guys.
Good morning. My name is Wix Manguda. I'm a visual storyteller. So basically what that is I use anything that is within reach, anything that you can see to create art. Yeah, it's lovely to be here.
Thank you.
Good morning. Isaac Mutwiri from Multimedia University. We train in animation and film, and my area is curriculum development.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Kagia, 3D animation. I do game development as well and film. My company is African Art Digital. So, yeah, pleasure to speak with you.
Morning, everyone. My name is David Alex. I'm a 3D animator and motion graphics animator. I work at Ada Animation, where we're working on Africa's first fully animated feature film. Thanks.
Awesome, awesome. And with us online, we have Wilfred and Dean, each giving you 10 seconds introduction. Let's start off with you, Wilfred.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wilfred, one of the founding directors of ADMI, where Dennis also works.
Dean? Sorry, we can't hear you, Dean.
I guess I should unmute.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dean Lyon. I'm a visual effects creator. I do digital animation. I've been involved with Ad Animation for a couple of years now, and a part of this great feature film project that David mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Thank you very much, panelists. And so let's get right into the question. What are these opportunities that we keep on hearing? I mean, we hear that games is in an emerging trend, animation is an emerging trend, and they're the new incumbent in the entertainment world. They seem to be the newest, the new kid on the block, new kid with like 20, 30 years. But it goes together with how computers started being used to try and have a virtual environment to give you a playground. But currently, where we are at in 2020, what are some of the emerging trends that you feel that are there? Isaac, would you start us off?
Thank you. One of the things that has happened is we are getting more of a visual effect technology into everything. Viewers want some realistic looking characters. And one of the ways that you're able to accomplish this is through 3D animation. And of course, this has brought in the issue of live action animated content. So that's an opportunity right there for animators. Then the other thing is you find that Android has given in opportunities, especially for game developers, where now you are able to develop an app, a game app, then upload it in Play Store, and you are able to earn money from that.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to chip in? Andrew?
I think one of the biggest emerging trends is the use of real-time technology. Because traditionally with animation, there's this final process called rendering, which tends to be the longest and most heartbreaking of the whole thing. I remember a time when to render 3 minutes, I used to take maybe 3 months to render 3-minute video. And then, of course, if you find there are some issues, one issue or the other, again, you have another several weeks to correct it. But with real-time technology, 3 minutes takes 3 minutes to render, you see, or sometimes even almost less. And so this has enabled people to do a lot more. There's a project I've been working on the past 1.5 years, which is currently complete. It's due in September. It's a feature film, which was completely done in a game engine, real time. Without that technology, this would not have been possible at all. And people are beginning to use this technology even in Hollywood. And this is game technology. It originated from the game industry. And so this kind of cross-promotion of innovation has led to something that is a real game changer.
Okay. I'd like to recall, Dean, what do you think? What are some of the emerging markets that you have seen?
Well, the interesting thing, of course, is that video games actually grew out of visual effects for feature films. So it's interesting, as you point out, that it's now come back and it's beginning to drive the production of feature films. In the early days, the pipeline for each type of project, whether it was a television commercial or a feature film or a video game, was always different. You had to work in different pipelines. As you mentioned, with the arrival of these game engines, everybody is beginning to work in the same pipeline. And in fact, everything is real time, or I love faster than real time. What's happening really is that this is opening the door for metaverse. So every time people talk about metaverse, it really kind of is the complete merger of virtual experiences with video games as well as with real-time 3D rendering.
Okay, great. Thank you. Wilfred?
Well, yeah, I would say I think we are the gaming and the animation industry is in a very good position. Currently, I think the gaming industry, or the video gaming industry, as you guys like to refer it to, is the biggest industry right now, bigger than film. So I think and all this has been made possible, especially because of these game engines, like Andrew says. It's at the intersection of both digital cinematography or digital filmmaking, video gaming, animation, and all this, where I think we're headed to in, this world we're calling the metaverse, will only be possible because of this new technology and how all these three are playing together.
Yeah.
So the immersiveness, I think, of everything, is the biggest possibility for the industry.
I'll say it's very hard to talk about the emerging trends and not talk about the digital space, the social media platforms. I think it's important to know that different platforms have different audiences. So I'll use this bottle of water as an example. So assuming I want to sell it on Twitter, if I'm going to sell it on Twitter, I'll have to leave it open-ended because I feel like everyone on Twitter has an opinion. So I'll be like, this water is going to quench all your thirst. So whatever that means for the audience, you've left it open-ended. Then if I want to sell the same bottle of water on Facebook, the people who are on Facebook, the kind of audience on Facebook are the people who they joined that social platform believing that it's going to be a value add for their social communication. So they are going to need to know how this is going to add value to them. On Instagram, you have to make it fun and fancy and really cool. Like, how is this bottle of water going to improve my social status? On TikTok, you'll have to form a challenge and find a fun way of selling it where if someone starts a challenge, you somehow give them the probability that they're going to go viral. So the same thing with animation. When creating animation, you have to know where do you want to sell it. Do you want to sell it on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, where it's now all of them joined together? Yeah, I feel like we have to talk about algorithm over and over again because it keeps changing daily and you constantly have to be alert. Yeah.
David Alex.
All right, so on the front of emerging technologies, I'd say definitely real-time rendering is very important. It gives us way less time. Let's just say you have a timeline for a project and you have to worry about rendering at the end. So it eats up the time you could have spent cleaning up animation or even in any other step. So if we can take advantage of real-time rendering as well as AI-generated assets, that's also another very powerful tool that artists can use. So if you keep track of all these new technologies that are coming up and use them in our workflows, it allows us to be more creative. We're spending less time trying to create assets and let's just say trying to account for these things that take a lot of time. You now have more time to make better textures, better characters, even more time to work on the script and so on. So I think it's very important to keep track of what's happening with tech. Oh, and also hardware. Lately, hardware has been exponential. The growth has been exponential. RTX cards just do the most ridiculous things these days. Just 2 years ago, the stuff they're doing was probably impossible for some people. So keeping track of what's happening with hardware along with software just gives us more time to be more creative and to just create better stuff.
Okay, Andrew, I'd like to ask just in the same breath about the use of all this technology. Are there what has enabled you to be able? What are some, if you could highlight the things that you are able to achieve within the film that you made that wasn't possible, 2-3 years ago?
So David had mentioned hardware, because the two go together. You also need the right hardware to be able to utilize these emerging technologies. So the film that I'm about to release is an hour, 20 minutes. It's a full feature, fully 3D, done inside of Unreal Engine. It would have taken me 15 years maybe. And if I was using conventional non-real-time methods, the ability to make rectifications in real time without having to wait for the final output. Basically, what you're working with is almost one-to-one with the final output. So you don't have to wait and see. Okay, I've rendered. Then now, okay, I see an issue. It's like one-to-one. It's just unbelievable. So that has enabled me to be able to produce this, which honestly would not have been able in any universe. Yeah.
True. And Dean, you've also worked with AR and VR. Could you tell us about that and what opportunities it also opens up? Oh, and also you can also put in there the holograms.
Well, I kind of skipped up to the metaverse, but certainly AR and VR has become a storytelling device as well, and it's taking advantage of visual effects and digital animation, and also can be used in the same pipeline that we're discussing with the game engines. The interesting thing, of course, is that it does allow us to tell our story in a variety of different ways. Um, the idea of creating digital avatars and having real time interaction in the metaverse is probably skips over maybe some of the ideas that we had originally. So, the challenge is we have to keep exploring the new technologies, as we're saying, and also the fact that things are only going to get better.
Okay, I wanted to know a bit more about this hologram aspect of this emerging trend. I think it's the only part we've ever met a hologram is this anti-counterfeit measures that are being put in some small, like a barcode by, okay, for us it was in the Kenya Bureau of Standards. So you just play around with it to see whether something is genuine. But how is it going to be used, perhaps?
Yeah, well, I purposely skipped over holograms. We've seen live holograms on stage, so it's not just about tiny visualization. The challenge is, of course, that the resolution and this push to try to get real life like humans is going to be much different using projection on a stage. So it's going to take quite a while for us to get to that point, although laser projection is getting much better. I guess the ultimate dream that I always had was that we could create a hologram that sits in the middle of our living room and we could actually walk around it and interact with it and have that be part of a storytelling device.
David, you have actually worked within the projection space. And what do you think also the additional potential you probably see with this whole hologram projection?
All right, yeah. I've done a couple of like content creation for hologram shows, and I'd say the same as Dean says, it's still in its infancy. It still needs more time to be as clear as people expect it to be, as realistic as people expect when you say check out a hologram. But we can still give props to companies like ILM who recreated, or was it Digital Domain, who recreated Tupac for that one concert. Which was really impressive. It really, bringing him back to life was a big step, and allowing everyone to see what he was like live was pretty dope. So what I'd say is for the events, this applies mainly to events and live concerts. I think holograms are something to explore as a step to improving the experience for the people who are attending the show, and and people watching.
To make it more immersive and more real, like,
Yeah, and make it more interactive, because we're getting to the point in events where people are used to seeing screens, they're used to seeing lights and all that. So if you can have a live performer on stage, like performing alongside a hologram, and it's not just bringing the person to life, it's also taking advantage of what a hologram can do, because essentially you can have content that's in front of people, behind people, and now it's on the creatives and the people who are making the content to take advantage of this and, just find really cool ways to do it. I mean, Beyonce's shows are also really cool in how they take advantage of the screens. There's one show she did where she'd be dancing on one side of the stage, and then the lights would cut on her, and it would look like she's teleported to the other side of the stage because it's now a screen showing her dancing. So they do this thing where it would go back and forth between the screen and her. Like, that's a pretty creative idea and pretty cool. So if you can just continue having artists just looking beyond just selling the hype that it's just a hologram, but also making the content sell a new idea and give people a better experience during the shows.
Yeah, and also I've just, now that you mentioned that, I remember there was a launch that was being done about, on still with Unreal, just trying to show people how easy it is to be able to animate a certain character in their own lifelike format, and then be able to project it somewhere else, and then be able to just switch languages, and then the lip syncing would actually change automatically. And the selling point for that was that you can just do just one take, and then you can multiply it all over the world just by changing just language. And doesn't that put a threat, especially to the animation community? in
Actually, interestingly, I'd say something connected to that is where we'd have one show that's running in multiple cities at the same time. So you'd have the artist in Nairobi and they're rigged up, or rather not rigged up, but you have like a camera watching them. And then their performance can be replicated in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in any other city in real time, which is pretty cool. But for what you've said, I don't think it really takes away from the animators. I'd go back to the point I said before, it gives you more room to be able to do more. I mean, if the tools still need you to have the idea first for it to execute what you're doing. So with the tools being better, it now means you again have more time to be able to come up with even better ideas. Yeah.
Okay, and just with that, then we go, of course, to the education space. How fast are we emerging to keep the students that are coming in ready for the animation and game space to be relevant and not to feel like they're always going to get out of school and then still play a lot of catch up and then wait a couple of years before now they break into the industry? So Isaac and Wilfred, we can start with you, Isaac.
I think what has happened is because of the digital space and the internet, most of the training now can be made easier. For example, we have one of our students who's doing a master class with which is being facilitated by Triggerfish, Disney, and University of San Francisco. So what he has been doing is he has been doing animation, and most of it is real time, and most of his other colleagues are following up. So although you may say that we may not be having the type of equipment with the new technologies, you can be able to acquire most of the skills and knowledge from everywhere. So I don't think that there is nothing that can stop any student, even who want to teach themselves, especially animation and gaming. And interesting enough, you find in this industry, most of the people are self-taught. Most of the people did not do animation as a course. We have a few. But of course, you know, this is one of the newest programs. Like multimedia, we started the diploma in 2011. So comparing to the other fields, it's relatively young. But if you look at the animation industry, it's older than that because these people were able to train themselves. And that time it was even under. Now it's easier. We have tutorials, we have software in the cloud. So I think there are opportunities there for training as long as the student is willing to put time, especially to go to the right virtual classrooms. Because even as a university, we don't think that we have everything that can enable a student to be a full animator or a game developer. What we do is at least show them the structure, and then the other knowledge and the skills they acquire them from the industry by attending events like these. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Wilfred, how fast are we adapting to these emerging markets?
No, we are adapting. And at ADMI, I think what we've done is that we realize that we are very far behind. And a lot of the trainers as well have been, have gone through self-training. But then what we did as we partnered with a school in France called Rubica, and we basically used their curriculum. And what they did was first to train the trainers to be able to offer the curriculum or the syllabus. And then from there now, we were lucky to get some support to be able to buy the right equipment. So we've been training with Unity since day one, Unity game engine. And just recently this month, we also signed up as one of the education partners for Unreal. And this will be rolled out, as soon as possible. So in terms of the tools, I think the tools are available. It's really the trainers and understanding how to use those tools. I think that's the most critical part. So we need people like Andrew, who I regard as one of the best animators in the country, to come into the classroom as well. Looking forward to his feature film, because I think some of the trends as well we are seeing is that full feature animation films are coming onto the forefront, and they actually don't really take up the animation structure. They are more cinematic. Just yesterday I was watching this animation chicken hair and the hamster of darkness. I mean, when you look at that film, the way it's been made, it's amazing in terms of the story itself, but also gives the opportunity for you to do things you'd never do in a live set, and being able to dream of these worlds, and being able to actually create those worlds in animation and using these game engines. So that we're adapting, and we're using these tools in class, and hopefully we'll be seeing some amazing work coming out from the students.
Okay, thank you. Weeks, when you get to see the potential of these emerging markets, and having this discussion with people who are in school, and some of them are doing probably digital journalism, and here is an opportunity for them to disseminate information in a different way, using social media and all. What do you think would also be important to an educational institution to enable a student have the right tools, so that by the time they're getting out, at least they have some place to start from?
From the YouTube University. So I haven't studied animation from school. Like, even the type of animation I do, it's how animation started, like you draw frame by frame by hand. That's what I do. So I feel like the way he said, as long as you have a structure, then I feel like you have all these things that you need. Everyone is looking for a formula on how to go about animation and be successful in the industry, but I don't think there's a formula really. If anything, the formula that I work by is critique. That's how I know how good my job is. So, okay, let me just go straight into the point. You can be making you can be good at making a meal that is really terrible, but you can perfect that craft of making a meal that is really terrible. So in the animation industry, art industry, critique is what helps you know what you're doing, whether it's right or it's wrong, or where you're heading in the right direction or not. So for the guys in school, I feel like they should feel encouraged, because first of all, we live in an era where we have internet, we have all these social media platforms. So whether you're doing it the old school way, drawing by hand, whether you're using softwares, share your work online. You'll get opportunities, support, help from what you show people you can do. You can be really good at something, but as long as you're not showing us, then people won't know where to come through for you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Dean and David, you've been working together with Ada Animation in some of the boot camps, and also I know that you're also employers. And what do you feel is the need in the educational space to make sure that there is a small, as little time as possible for somebody to just get in and actually do their work? Do you feel like there's a disconnect between education, the education space, and the people who are coming into work? Yeah.
Okay, I can answer that one. I wouldn't say there's a disconnect. Lately, actually, a lot of the new courses that have been coming up have upped their game and are really helping students understand, the fundamentals and the direction they need to take their work. So I'd say I'd give props to the schools for improving their courses and building up. What I'd say is it would be great for the institutions and the companies to work together to make sure the students that are coming are already ready for even small things like pipelines and workflow. Because we find some of the time when someone comes in, you have to train them on the pipeline of the internal, what you're using inside the company. So it's not really something that, how can I explain? It's like a workflow thing. And it would be nice to be able to have students to be able to work more closely together, to be able to accept their weaknesses and hand over all those things to their teammates. Because you tend to find some guys have been training and learning and they've just been doing it by themselves the whole time, or they just have one or two projects they've collaborated with. But when you come into a company, it's pure collaboration. Everything you're doing, you're working with your coworkers, with your team members, you're training one another, you're learning new tools all the time. So I think that's also something they can still learn on the job. But for the most part, I think schools are doing pretty okay, yeah.
Okay, so generally to get them into a pipeline that they can understand and work with, and especially encourage that collaboration aspect of not doing it alone, right?
Yeah, and getting used to the idea that at some point you just have to stop. Because you just have to finish what you've done, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but even as you hand it over to the next person in the pipeline, they can always help you improve it in some way, right? So to be able to just accept, I think it's also just a thing you learn on the job and as you grow up and as you grow as an artist. But yeah, that's just something people can start picking up on early.
And Dean, for you, do you find it also, is there a disconnect or is there an alignment from the students that you may find getting into the working space?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add to what David was saying is that that's the whole purpose of why we invented the boot camp idea, is that we want to take students who have learned the basics in school and sort of teach them how it works in the industry. We tell them, we also reveal how we work within ad animation. But all of those skill sets can be used to get a career anywhere. We encourage not only joining the team, but also having the opportunity to start your own business or maybe go work in the industry overseas. When I was in film school, I always said that the academics that I learned in film school, I still use every day. But how I really learned how to break into the industry was to actually hear from the people that are actually doing it. So, I think you're right in saying, invite us into your classroom so that we can kind of share some of that experience and some of the things that don't normally come up in a classroom. I also have noticed that artists tend to work alone. Therefore, they tend to have trouble with changing their art, sharing their art, understanding that when you're working on a project, you may throw things away and start over again. Those are all things that we teach in the boot camp.
Okay.
Oh yeah, just to add also to that is when you're working as animators on a team, and this is something we experience at ADA, is we are like 8 animators, but the work we produce has to look like it's all been done by the same person, because we don't shot to shot, like here it's exaggerated a lot, here there's squash and stretch, here there's that, but each artist also has their own opinion of how they feel the shot needs to come out. But at the end of the day, it's on them to align and make sure that everyone, once everything is done, it all just looks like it's one person, and people can now focus more on the story and the events of the animation as opposed to noticing, hey, this looks a bit better than the last shot or a bit worse and so on. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And even in the same direction, you mentioned about collaborations and being able to work together. And since curriculum usually takes about 2 years before it's being revised, while in the IT field you need to renew like your licenses, like your practitioner licenses on a yearly basis, because you have to get up to speed on the new trends within the market and abilities. Isn't it a bit too late for the education space to have to wait another year instead of it being a bit more regular change of curriculum?
When it comes to the way the curriculum is developed, especially for dynamic areas, there is always a room for adding what we call emerging issues. So you find what you have is what we call course description. But then, for example, if I invite Andrew to come and teach that, he'll develop his own course outline. And the course outline is the one that now will be used to teach at that time. So actually, the course is supposed to be new every time you teach it. So like us, what we do is we have a student on industry attachment. And one of the things is when supervisors go there, the first thing is to look at the supervisor who's in the industry and ask them, what do you think should be added to these students so that they can be able to work? And once you get the challenges, you come and now inform us so that we can include that in the course outline. For example, the degree curriculum takes what we call a full cycle. After every graduation, that is 4 years. So for you to be able to have a curriculum that is speaking to industry, then you need to have the course outline being done every semester. Yeah, so that's what we do. And of course, the feedback from the industry. Sometimes they'll tell you that we wanted, for example, to get someone to hire as an animator, but all the people we got did not have this skill. So what we do is then we look for 2 things. One, get someone from the industry, because we do that collaboration, and have them take a few courses so that we can be able to align the training with what is happening in the industry. Yeah.
And what are some of the challenges that you experience now that getting to see the emerging markets and being relevant? So if Andrew comes in and then and says that, hey, this is what I would like to teach, are there some challenges that you usually face when trying to implement them? And what could they be? And then that will be followed also by Wilfred.
I think one of them, especially when we are teaching the undergraduates, is that we have the regulator, who's the Commission for University Education, who requires a certain qualification for you to teach, either undergraduate or postgraduate. So what you find is that you need to be creative so that when you bring in the industry people, you don't bring them as lecturers, you bring them as what we call lecturers of practice. Otherwise, we will not be allowed to have them teach, although they are the experts in the field, because as I said, most of the people who work in the animation and gaming, most of them either did an program, and now they are doing animation. Most of them with so much experience, but they don't have any certificate to show for that. So for you to be able to use their skills, then you need to be creative in a way that you request for them to be engaged.
It also calls for TVETA and Q to even offer. I remember that there was a discussion last year where they want to start accrediting somebody who's done who's been an expert in their field through practice. That you should just go into a school and say, hey, I want to do 1, 2, 3 units that will show that I am competent in particular area. Because not everyone went to school. I mean, Andrew didn't go to school too. Okay, he did at Shangtao, yes, but whatever he's doing. What? No, oh, I'm sorry. Wrong information.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's been self-taught. No, so that would be like a really welcome thing, right?
I think most of the time is the people training programs in what we call creative industry. One is one of the most what we call capital intensive. And you know that for example, if someone is has a maybe a program, BA, English and D teacher.
Yep,
What you need is classroom space and lecturers.
done.
When you're teaching animation, you're looking for so many things that most of the time you'll not be able to say, I have all the equipment, all the labs I need. So that's where now the people in the field comes in. Because most of them, for example, when we engage someone who has been animating, they have their own work that they'll use to train. At least that reduces the burden of trying to get some of the practical project that you can show the students.
Okay, great. Thank you, Isaac. And Wilfred, anything to add on the challenges on implementing curriculum on margin markets?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us especially, we've faced a big challenge because, you know, when you consider a course like video game, there are very few people who would be qualified in terms of, you know, having the right papers as per the regulations by TVET and, you know, TVET, CDAC, and KNQA to teach a course. So we've had to negotiate a lot, but right now I think there's something they are calling recognition of player learning, which is has been brought about by KNQA, which allows for anyone with experience to actually, you know, get certified and the right certifications. So as per the regulation right now is that if you're teaching a certificate level, you can be a diploma holder, and if you're teaching a diploma level, you should be a degree level. So what we've seen is that we've found a lot of the trainers, especially at diploma level, who've done a degree in another course, even medicine and, you know, pharmacy and whatever. But then they've self-taught themselves video gaming, and, you know, through now our training of trainers with Aerobica, they were able to, you know, adapt and learn how to deliver. Because again, teaching is not easy. You know, you have to be able to dumb it down for someone who has no idea what the, you know, the industry is all about, and, you know, being able to deliver in a stage-based manner in terms of levels, yeah. Because again, you might have so much knowledge, but you overwhelm the students with all that information, you know, at once. So you have to be able to deliver it slowly, and also understand how to, you know, how to plan your lesson plans so that you can see progression in the learning and understanding from the students. But I can say, I think that's right now with the recognition of prior learning, I think that's an easy way now to get, people with the right experience back into the classroom. But also, we also do what we call master classes, like, every Friday. So we invite people from the industry to come in. But also, the other thing is that plays a critical role is industry attachments, where you once after you're done, then you're able to be interned at a company. Unfortunately, we don't have that many companies, especially for video game and animation. But we are now seeing a lot of people more formalizing their setups, because again, these two professions, most of the people are bedroom operators, so they work from home most of the time. So it's not easy to set up a whole unit where people are able to now go for internship there. But then what is happening as well, I think with what COVID has also taught us is that remote working is a thing, and I'm sure Andrew has something to talk about. I'm sure he's been working collaboratively with other people, using other tools. So remote working requires discipline. So as long as the students is able now to learn this, because we also have trainers from France, India, and Canada who also do remote training. So once they start adapting to this way of working, I think it will be much easier for them to be able to integrate into other systems and other companies.
And even just to focus a bit on that, because you've mentioned a lot about the trainers, and even Isaac had mentioned it before, that it kind of falls under the trainers to be the ones to set the course outlines. And some of them are really good at what they're doing. Do you find it difficult to find people who are good at what they're doing and also very good at teaching? Because, those are two different things.
That's tough to find someone who is good at both. But then again, with training in terms of how to deliver, then it's possible. Because again, if you know so much, you just need to know the methods and the ways to deliver or break down your concepts, dumb it down again to the students, then and they'll be able to follow.
Yeah. And Isaac, do you feel that also the trainers, just to reiterate on what you had said a bit earlier about the trainers needing to be at the forefront of this learning of this new technology, is there really support for these teachers to actually go out there and experience this new trends, go and do their masters for those who want to, or do, PhDs in that creative area? Yes, there are PhDs in those creative areas.
It's tough because one, you find most of the people in, let's say, animation and gaming are what we call hands-on. Unfortunately, most of the postgraduate program in the country are what we call theory-based, research-based, which means, for example, you cannot have a project, you cannot have an animation. You do an animation like he's doing, and based on that, we give you either masters. So most of them actually have seen, like some of the colleagues in the university who want to do PhDs have either to go out of the country because there are degrees there which are purely practical. Yeah. So the way we do postgraduate studies here makes it hard for people in the industry to continue doing what they do because this is something they've done for so long. But if, for example, you tell them to go and do more of research in the area instead of producing what we call an artifact, something that can be seen, becomes a problem. Yeah, we have a problem with that because most of the people feel that when they do, for example, masters, they are moving out of their area. Yeah, because the area, for example, was animation, then you find we don't have animation, masters animation in Kenya. So you are forced to do, for example, masters in broadcast journalism. Yeah, so it's a bit tough.
And also in sponsorship options of people going abroad to study, do you feel that they are also sufficient?
No, in terms of, if you look at most of the sponsorship, especially for further education, most of them are more in the what we call the traditional areas of STEM. So for example, if I apply for a a grant to go and do a master's in animation, and then someone does same to do master's in electrical engineering,
Yeah.
the probability that the engineering guy will get the grant before me is very high.
Okay, great. And Leon, since you are an employer, are there opportunities? And also David, do you feel like there are opportunities within like your work environment where you give people a chance to actually grow in a certain area? They feel like, hey, I would want to take a 6-month course in this. I would want to take a break from work. Do you think that's something available? That would actually work in terms of upskilling the department, or is it something that can be done, or how do you go about upskilling people within your industry? I mean, your workers, if I may.
Right. So at ADA, essentially, yes, we do allow our employees to take on additional courses to help them build their skills. But we also do internal workshops. So every week, like on Thursdays, Fridays, we have a workshop where we train guys on different aspects, like gesture drawing, figure drawing. We do quite a bit of that. We also have internal challenges. So we give every artist an opportunity to work on a challenge. And me as the head of animation, it's on me to just make sure I'm keeping track of everyone and look at all their weaknesses and where they're falling short and just give them a challenge based on that. So it would be model a hard surface thing or try and model the same character but do it in a much shorter time. And at the same time, we still expect them to finish their work. So we're also trying to give them the ability to be able to multitask between the challenges, doing the workshops, doing the homework from the workshops while still accomplishing their tasks for the job. So yeah, I feel like that also helps them a lot in terms of just becoming more organized, understanding what they need to do, being able to just report in. If they feel like something is out of their reach, they can now communicate and say, man, that challenge is beef. I might not be able to finish my work. And that's a pretty big step to take, to be able to accept that you might not be able to do something you've been assigned. And that in itself is also growth in some way. So yeah, we definitely promote it. I mean, art is also always changing. We can always get better at everything we do. So we really promote that at ADA.
Great, thanks. Dean, anything to add?
No, I think that's pretty much what I was thinking. Is it's especially when you're a startup, it's really difficult to allow a lot of extra work to go and take a course, for instance, as you suggest. But internally, certainly there's these challenges and also the potential to learn from the people that you're sitting next to. And so I think that a lot of that is encouraged, where no question is too simple. Be sure to ask, or be sure to research what you're looking to do. And we also encourage that in the boot camp, where, as David said, if somebody feels like they can't complete the task, they just raise their hand so that the mentors can, help them work through that. I think so most of the training I would describe in the industry globally is on the job training. Once again, like I said, you come away from the schools with a set of knowledge and tools that you always refer back to, but constantly you have to learn something new. I always say I learn something new every day. That's the way you stay current and keep pushing in the industry.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, being able to learn something new every day. So even the animators who may be watching this, don't just sit back and just say, hey, I have this skill, I still need to move forward. And some of them, we've talked about some of the emerging markets that are there. What are the opportunities you can start looking into? And even then, it also brings back into the question. So I'll go with Mwix and Andrew to begin with, in terms of what are some of the challenges that you faced just getting into this animation space, and then not even let alone getting into the emerging markets. All right, like what do you feel has been a challenge to get to that point? Wix, you can start.
Okay, I have a couple. So the first one is cost of materials. Like buying art materials is super expensive. The other day I was doing math of how much it costs me to buy materials for 1 month, and it came to 25,000. Now keep that in mind. And then the second one is I feel like most of the companies and brands, they don't know how to work with animators, or they don't have a sufficient budget for animators. So when you spend a lot of money and you're not getting it back, it's very easy for you to give up. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is, which I feel like every creative goes through, creative block. Maybe you even have a deadline and you're really trying to come up with this amazing art, but your mind is just not cooperating. Yeah, so that's the second challenge. The third one is where to distribute your work. So you have all this amazing work you've done that has taken time and money and a lot of research, but you don't have the avenues to share your work. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Those are very clear. And yeah, those are things that you experience every day. With the writer's block, you have this project and you're being told, yes, it needs to be the most amazing thing, it should be something you've never seen before. And then you're like, blank wall, like for a while. That is true, that is true. And I'll get back to you on what are some of the things that you have done to enable to move away from that. Because that's something that you are in creative control over. But before that, let me go to Andrew. What are the challenges? Okay, yes. Wow. Just bring out the scroll.
This feels like a therapy session, so thank you for the opportunity. Okay, the thing is, for something like animation, especially being in this part of the world, industries which are fairly new, it's a significant challenge to overcome, as opposed to, let's say, someone starting animation in the US or the UK, basically a Western country. So, okay, I started teaching myself when I was like 13 or something like that. And of course, I had to wait till I cleared high school so that there was a viable opportunity to do anything. And I ended up going the self-taught way because the opportunity was not there to study abroad. And I don't think, by the time I started teaching myself even, I don't think YouTube was there. I would go to cyber cafes and print out content to read, to animate, to print out and read. Yeah.
Theory learning.
That's some, so I would go to Yahoo. I would go to Yahoo, Google stuff on Yahoo, and print it out. And that's basically how I started learning. Then eventually, because it was quite a while before this thing became financially viable, so I would do jobs for web design, that kind of thing, just to kind of make ends meet. And I remember the first project I got, I had to deliver on a Saturday evening, and on Saturday morning there was from Friday there was a power blackout. So I had to put my big unit in a bag and walk 1 kilometer to the nearest cyber to connect it so that I could deliver. So challenge was just crazy in the beginning. Of course, right now learning is much easier. YouTube, you can basically get everything you want on YouTube. But at the end of the day anyway, there's always a way around it. For me, that's the attitude I take. It's like, because even now there are challenges, for example, but there's always a way around it. For example, in Kenya, we cannot do things like Kickstarter. If I have an amazing project and people outside of Kenya want to support me, Kickstarter is not possible, you see. Indiegogo, mainstream crowdfunding platforms are not possible, but there are ways around it, you see. So it's just constantly evolving, finding a way around the challenges. So you can't really, it doesn't matter what level you're at, there's always something that will kind of try and throw you off. Even the project I recently finished was a huge challenge. I mean, I was working 16 to 19-hour days on it. You know, I faced so many issues because of the hardware. Some hardware ended up blowing up. Like, I burnt a lot of hardware trying to get this thing done. You know, if it's not a power surge, it's, you know, the internet, or it's this or that. It's always one thing or the other. You know what I mean? But you just find a way. Just find a way. I think that's what I have to say. Find a way.
Wow, that's hardcore, man. David, on your end, what are some of the challenges that you have experienced when you're doing your content creation? What are some of the challenges that you have experienced as an animator growing? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's a therapy session. For me, it was that I hit a wall of the things I was learning. I learned a lot of stuff on the job, and I also did the same as him. I was learning most of my stuff self-taught. And then it got to a point where I realized there's only so much you can learn on YouTube and on free sites. Let me say specifically for free, there's a limit to what you can learn. Because there's this site called Video Copilot. I'm sure After Effects artists know about it. It has insane tutorials, like really, really high-end stuff. But now I started getting to the point where I was asking myself, yeah, I can execute this stuff, but now I've realized I don't have the ability to come up with the good ideas in the first place. Like, you'll get a tutorial on how to make a meteor come out of the sky, hit the ground, and make it look realistic. But for you to be able to first think up that I need to make a meteor come and crash, getting that skill was something that I really felt like I couldn't learn online anymore. So I didn't really find a solution for it. That's something I started reading more books, paying attention to movies, and just trying to make a library of ideas in my head. And then as things come up, I try to combine all those different things. But that was definitely something I felt was missing online. Places like Udemy and there's Udemy, Animation Mentor, all these websites that offered paid courses actually help you in that aspect of things. But yeah, you find a lot of the time the tutorials you see is how to do a specific thing, how to model a hand, how to make a character, but how to now come up with ideas, how to design a good character, how to make them appealing, how to take something you've already made and make it even better. That's stuff you can't learn online. So yeah, that was pretty tricky.
Cool. Wix had mentioned I'd get back to you, so this is it. Yeah.
So how do I go about creative block? So with what I do, okay, so I have three things. So the first one with what I do is like I said, I use different things to create art. So I don't know if every artist is guilty of this, but when one project, assuming I'm working with serviettes, if the serviette project doesn't work out and I get a creative block, I'll take a break from it and start the what? The water I've really used this bottle of water and start the water project. So that helps. By the time I'm getting done with this, maybe by then I feel a bit lighter about the serviette project. Then I'll go back to it. That's the first way I go about it. The second way, Google has this 20% rule that I took up and followed. So what the 20% rule is they normally encourage their employees, like for every week, take 20% of your time and use it to charge yourself with stuff you're passionate about. Because they know the minute you charge yourself with enthusiasm and determination and all this good vibes energy, then you'll find a way to bring it back to work. So my 20%, how I normally charge myself, apart from sleeping, eating, and traveling, is I normally take time to now go watch other people's work. I'm not so much into movies, so I really like short films, like 10 minutes clip, and I'm done. Then it gives me the psych to go back to my project. And even sitting like this with you guys and realizing, oh my God, most of the stuff I go through is stuff everyone is going through. That is already charging me up. Like, imagine, just keep it moving. Yeah.
It looks like I'll be charging hourly right now. So, yeah, there's a hand. Oh, yeah, Wilfred, yes?
Yeah, I was going to say that, most animators and, and video gamers or game designers are nerds, and they can really keep to themselves. And sometimes, those things can affect them, psychologically and everything. So I think once in a while, like Wick says, get out, go into some of these exhibitions, conferences. Like now, this next week, is the biggest animation festival, Annecy, which also has a gaming, a video gaming side to it. I think, going there, network and, interact with people, learn what people are, what kind of tools they're using, what new technologies available. I think it's really critical because that recharges you, to come back. But the other thing is also you realize that as much as, it can take you 10, 20 years to get, very good at what you do. It takes time, hours, yeah. But then you realize at some point you have to start now developing your own IP, and that's really important because without your own IP, you'll really be working for other people forever. So once you get good at what you do, I think get to a point where now you start creating real original work, because we know animation projects can make money for the next 20 years for you. Actually, it's one of the most viable projects that you can actually work on in a digital space. So just one animation, and especially animations for kids, not really adult animation, even adult animation. You can still watch that, Tom and Jerry today, 20 years later. Yeah. So it's one of the most viable industry. And also even the talent, in terms of the talent, if you feel Kenya is, too restrictive for you, the talent visas for animators and game designers are everywhere. Go learn, work in a new different environment, and then come back home and come up with your own original work. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. That's interesting. Yes, David. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had something to add on that story of creative block, because that's something I also experienced quite a bit. And that was that creative block and burnout are actually very close friends. And it's an important part of being an artist to also know yourself. So something I learned about myself is I don't know when to stop. Like I can work on something continuously for 3 days non-stop. But for sure, by the 4th, 5th day, I'm probably gonna be sleeping the whole day. So that was something we were forced to learn, especially at Animation Mentor, was that you have to know yourself, know when to stop, know when to feel that feeling. Because creative block and burnout are one of those things that happen because you overworked yourself. If you're feeling burnout on Thursday, it means on Wednesday and Tuesday you are overworking yourself. So, and you only realize you're there, or it's coming when you're already there. So you can't really say, hey, at this rate I'm gonna burn out, stop. So you now have to learn your own system, figure out a system for yourself that works. Mine personally was, I started making sure that I only work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And at best, I'd rather just only work when I'm in the office. Once I leave the office, I don't do anything. I try to avoid doing work at home. And that might seem like, hey, bruh, those are hours you could have been working. But I'm at the point now where I can work Monday to Friday and be completely productive from those hours. So I also try to avoid, when I'm within the working hours, I try to avoid downtime. So if there's, like in the office, things are a bit slow and there's maybe not much work to be done, or I've finished my tasks early, I just go and do something else. I just make sure I'm still being productive so that by the end of that day, when I go back home, I can say I've done something. And yeah, I've not felt burnout in a while. I was burnt out last week because we had a crazy deadline. But generally speaking, yeah, I try to just maintain a certain schedule.
Yeah, having a work-life balance and also being very intentional about how you're spending your time and a lot of time management, yeah. And yes, Weeks.
I have a question for him. He said he normally works between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Now I want to know, I'm sorry, I really have to ask, and to know from you, it normally happens for me, okay, fine, I've said, like, I'm going to work from, okay, let's take his time, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then it gets to 9 p.m., and I have this crazy idea in my head, which I know if I don't start working on it there and then I don't know if tomorrow I'll have the inspiration, the same level where it is at 9 p.m. So I find myself working overnight. Does that happen to you?
It does. I just write it down and say I'll do this in the morning. Yeah, because it's the same thing. Because I'll fall into that trap again. If the idea comes up, and that's now the same discipline you're building. Being able to really capture that idea in your head, write it down, and make sure when you wake up and you're fresh in the morning, you'll be able to execute it the way you see it.
And you won't get stuck, like, okay, now for me, the first 30 frames really determine, really mean a lot in each of my projects. So if I don't start doing the first 30 frames, then even in the morning, I might draw 5 frames, but by the time I'm drawing the 6th frame, which is not even 30 milliseconds, 1 second, it's like, I don't know, 6 milliseconds. So I really have to.
So what I'd say,
Yeah.
that's your workflow.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is basically learn how to work around that. Like when you've worked on something all night, let's say you got the idea at 9,
Yeah.
you worked on it till 6 in the morning,
Yeah.
then you just have to accept that at 7 there's nothing else you're gonna do, or you're gonna be
Yeah.
tired. So when I'd say our workflows are very different.
Yeah.
So for you, it would be now to learn how to work around
yeah.
it. Yeah.
So it all goes down to being very aware of how your creative time spans and what you can be able to do with it.
Yeah, soul search,
interest-
go on trips, do all those things you need to do. But yeah, the better you can understand yourself, the better you can work as an artist. Yeah.
Yeah, personally, my most creative time is between 5 and 8 p.m. That was the hardest time. Like, people are looking to you for supper, you're going to you to do what? And then here I am, my mind is active and ready. And then when I'm finally done, food is over. This was happening in campus for me.
You know, funny enough, I know another artist who used to tell me that he's a night person. Like, they only work from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And after doing some investigation, it turned out that it's not really that they work at night. It's just that at night they're less likely to get a call from someone or to be bothered by a client and so on. So what became of it was, maybe you don't like being interrupted in your workflow. So why don't you make it a day thing, but at certain times you can't be reached. Like, you can just put your phone off, or everyone you work with just knows if you want to reach this guy, call him at 11, call him early in the morning, or call him over lunch. And yeah, that's what came of it. It was just an anxiety thing as opposed to being a night person. But not necessarily that all night people are scared of phone calls. I'm just saying it's just that specific case. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick one. So for me, I have my phone next to me when I'm sleeping. So if I get a random idea, I just wake up, put the recorder, and just talk, because I find it easier to get all the detail when just talking to the recording it versus writing down. You don't have to switch on the light. For me that works. And one thing I think also in regards to burnout, I don't think generally we consider nutrition in this whole factor. People tend to eat badly. You're eating pizzas and you're sitting all day. You gain like 5 kgs in a week. Like, if you eat like crap, you'll also feel like crap. So for me, I noticed diet, specifically what I eat. I did not experience any burnout on my most recent project, which I was doing 16 to even 19 hours a day for like the last 6 months. And that is only because of the diet, only 100% because of the diet. For me, I realized carbohydrates, I work better without them. Yeah. So, because, yeah, when you look at it like from a, you know that idea of like if you eat ugali for lunch, you feel sleepy, you know, it's because your insulin is spiked. So when you're not eating carbohydrates, you have a constant insulin level. You don't have ups and downs, ups and downs. So for me, I realized when I eat like that, I don't get burnout at all. The moment I start eating carbs again, I get tired. So there's the nutrition side of things, which I think is generally overlooked.
That's a very important bit. Like, yeah. Okay, so animators, please, those all who are watching and all game developers out there, please make sure you eat right and you sleep. And, you know, and as review everything that you've talked about. Like, these are all tips on how to get over your creative block, how to, when you have that brilliant idea in the middle of the night, what you need to do. Like, it's helpful and making sure that you still stay within your creative process. And even then, when you're going and to do that, I would like to see how the animation, games, and film, because funny enough, people always put those three things separately. Like there's film, and then there's animation, and then there's games. But the interesting thing is that the father of all these things is actually film, because it's a way of communication. It's a way of entertainment within the film space, just with the three sectors divided into it. And so what are some of the ways? So this would go to Wilfred and Dean to start us off. So I'll start off with Wilfred. How are the ways we can be able to merge these three together, the games and the animation and the filmmaking industry? How do we improve that nexus such that there's that division is, yes, it's clear, but when we are talking as one front, we understand that we are all part of the film industry and not feel like we are always fighting for each other at the same time. Yeah. Wilfred?
Yeah, I think people need to realize that, you know, an animation is a film. It's not any different. But to aptly put it, you know, like in terms of how all this work together, a good example is this series, TV series called Mandalorian. I don't know how many of you were able to watch it. The whole series was shot in a studio, a soundstage. How did they do it? Game engine, Unreal. So they were able to, you know, they just put up a 360 wall, video wall, and they were able to create, you know, environments, assets, everything. So the only part that was real is the foreground. But when you watch the series, you would actually think it was shot somewhere in the desert or whatever. But everything was done in a studio. The same thing with Game of Thrones. The last season, one of the biggest sequences was actually pre-planned on Unreal, and they, you know, to the detail in terms of camera size and everything. And it was done by a very young lady, I think 22 years. I listened to her at Annecy like 2 years ago, and she pre-planned, and she had to work with these most experienced directors, but the directors had to listen to her because she's the only one who knew the technology very well. And she was able to, you know, pre-visualize the whole sequences, the whole sequence for that scene, and they were able to plan, put together, you know, the production design for it, and able to shoot that according to how they had planned it. So it's basically bringing post-production into pre-production, not even production. So those three, work very closely. And you remember, again, to build those assets for pre-visualization, you need, of course, 3D artists. to do the the effects, you still need visual effects artists. So all those people can need or are working together already, and it will be just a natural progression in the next 1 or 2 years in Kenya as well. So it's not going to take long.
Being able to fuse the different techniques, the storytelling technique within film, and using game engines that are developed just purely to make games, but now which have expanded to animation, and then actually, yeah, it was animation that is put inside within the game engine space, and then now it actually comes into life. So that's a really nice merger right there. Yeah. Dean, anything to add?
Yeah, and also
Uh-huh.
even for animation, remember, once you create an animation, you can actually create an animation that you can output a 2D, a 3D, and also a game from the same animation. The same animation assets. So as long as you're good at what you do, all you need is an idea or an IP that you all work or bring your skills together and work together.
Yeah, true. Dean, anything to add?
Well, I think we've been talking about throughout this whole panel about the fact that the three areas are merging, and as you introduced, the idea is that it all grew out of filmmaking, and I think we also have all focused on the fact that it's storytelling, and really storytelling and using the best technique to tell that story is probably how this has all grown into some sort of the same world. So I think we spend more time focused on story, and then Wilfred touched on virtual production, which is kind of the buzzword at the moment. It's the idea that you do all of the planning before you actually begin the work. And it's really interesting because it's been hard for Hollywood to adapt because they're very traditional and they're used to working a certain way. What's ironic to me is that when you look at what virtual production is saying, that is, make sure everything's planned out, make sure all the camera positions are thought out. What we're really trying to do is teach live action filmmakers how to work like animation, because we never really actually started drawing a frame until we had the story pretty locked down, storyboards and animatics. I think more and more of that is happening in other areas of filmmaking, including gaming. And we all talk about the fact that the technology is going towards the game engines, which I agree makes it possible for the assets to be used in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Being able to reuse that technology very well. And anyone else wants to chime in on that area? Yeah, okay.
Just repeat the question again.
Film
and animation
merging
together. Yeah, virtual studios, virtual production is also a big thing in terms of merging the two industries, but also visual effects are pretty important. These days we have a lot of digital doubles in movies, so you'll see like someone doing a pretty unrealistic jump across a certain gap, and it definitely doesn't look like wire work, so it must have been an animation. So even with stuff like scanning nowadays, even a phone you can use to scan a person, and then you can have an online tool like Adobe Fuse where it rigs it up for you, and then you can just quickly come in and do digital doubles somewhat easily.
Deepfake.
Yeah, and deep fakes you can you can replace faces with deep fakes. So it's as tech is improving, even the film tech has also been improving quite a bit. They have live camera trackers, so as you move around your camera and you're seeing it, even the digital camera inside Maya or Blender or whatever software you're using does the same thing. And so it becomes a lot easier to composite like green screen shots and such things. So I feel like film and animation have always been pretty close together, and as time is going by, it's just becoming better and better. Yeah.
Yes, Mix.
About film and animation, like working together, I'm just going to shamelessly plug a movie that's coming up. It's called Click Click Bang. It's premiering on the 15th of July at Nairobi Cinema.
The name again? The name again?
The name of the movie, Click Click Bang. It's by Philip TV. Actually, Abel, Judy, and Walter are here, and they're part of the crew. So I'm starting to see film companies like embracing animators, which is what they've done for me. Is they've given me a platform where I can be able to express myself in the film, which is a really good thing. The second thing about VFX and film is I would challenge the script writers to be in Kenya, to start writing more, how do you call them? More VFX friendly movies. Yeah, where they allow people to express themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, David has an experience in that, and I think they won a special effects award.
Yeah, I've done quite a few things. Yeah, I've even done like music videos that had special effects, like screen replacements, explosions, and such things. So yeah, I think even in movies, even there's a few movies. There's a recent military movie that had digital explosions and jets doing flybys and such. So yeah, we need more.
Yeah, the synergy is already getting into the industry. And even then, now that we're getting to speak about that, how do we get to improve those skills? How do we improve the skill sets of now visual effects and that we can be able now to do within Unreal or Unity? Or how can we be able to empower the current animators to actually go ahead and do that, and even filmmakers to be ready to delve into that space? What do we need to do? Yeah, you can.
It's on me.
Yeah. Start with
Okay,
you, then we'll go to Isaac.
Okay, so in terms of empowering people, visual effects is actually really, it's harder than it looks. Like just getting two colors. I mean, we even watch Hollywood movies and sometimes you just see something happen and you're like, how did they really expect me to think that was real? So yeah, even the best of the best sometimes struggle with it. The same thing I was saying with the screen replacements I had to do once. Initially when we were shooting it, we were thinking, just shoot, we'll just track the corners of the screen and just put a composition in there. But then we learned a concept called lens distortion, which is gonna, it won't be a square anymore. It's going to distort corners slightly differently than what you'd expect. So it led to us having to learn now about how to correct for lens distortion, which there are very few tutorials on that. And that was something we learned later. So even when you watch, I actually had to read a book about it. And the book was saying you have to have a grid that you hold in front of the camera so that you can know how those lines are distorting. But this was like way after the shoot, so we couldn't even solve that problem. We also had to rotoscope because people were passing in front of the screens. The screens were green. We had made them green, yes, so that we could key it out, but it was also bleeding all to people's clothes because they were really close to it. So we ended up having to cut them out, having to remove the green. So it was a lot of hard work. And I'd hate for someone to have to learn that on the job. When you have a deadline, you can't put a project on hold just to read on stuff. And especially when you've already promised that you can deliver on it. So I'd say, yeah, for VFX, don't underestimate what it takes to do visual effects. It can be really difficult, but at the end of the day, it's really, really gratifying when everything just works and people don't even realize what you've done. And that's the good thing about VFX. When people don't notice, it means you did you did a good job. Yeah.
Because actually, the film that, do you remember the name? That's the name of the film that won the best visual effects.
Whistleblower.
Yes, Whistleblower. Interestingly, I was part of the judging panel there. I had to tell them that that's not real. They didn't know. So they just passed over. Then I'm like, no, guys, go back. No, this is not real. This is actually not there. So I had to actually really convince them with the rest of the judges who are not in animation to actually get to see that this has been animated. So yeah, and then that fine line is also very hard to be able to differentiate. But with the right eye, you can always get to just take it out. Like, of course, a professional within the area. Yep.
Yeah, for reference, for Whistleblower, we were doing bullet holes.
Yep.
There was a shootout in a kitchen. So we were doing the bullet holes and making the guns actually shoot.
muzzle,
So we were making the gun actually react. A bullet flies off, bullet casing flying out. And something the color artist had pointed out to us was when a bright flash comes for a camera, it usually, the next 2 frames will be slightly darker. Like the camera will try to compensate for that bright flash it's just seen. And we're like, what? You didn't even know that's a thing? And I was like, yeah, how are you guys doing this thing and you don't even know that? So we had to go back now. Actually, we didn't really go back. He's the one who fixed it for us. But he taught us something new on that, which just helped sell the realism. It's something you barely even see. Like if we removed it, you'd tell, okay, it looks off. But when it's there, you can't tell that that's what's making it look better, if that makes sense.
And that's good because that collaboration could be seen. Like your full-on visual effects, you know what needs to be done when it comes to the animation. You understand the principles of animation to make it feel like it's actually really there. And then this, your colorist, your color grader was like, hey, no, there's something that we are missing here. And
Yeah, exactly.
he ends up now getting to show also a bit more on pushing the VFX to be real and to react correctly. Yeah. Isaac, how do we support this growth?
I think over time, what we are seeing is most of it, especially adaptations. If you look at adapting from game to animation to film, and of course this means there is more work for animators. I've seen like most of the games are capitalized on those movies that used to be popular, so that it's easier for you to design a game based on something that people knew. And I've seen in the local scene where most of the small companies are more, animators are more into motion graphics because the industry understands it, like in most of the broadcast industry. Yeah, I realize most of the people when they advertise for animation jobs, they don't call them animators.
No.
They say they want motion graphics experts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because of that, we kept on getting feedback. Some of the animators don't have good graphic design background. And because of that, we designed a full degree course and a diploma course, which is about to be launched, which is purely animation and graphic design. Yeah.
Good job. And Wilfred, you've been in the film space for quite a while to a point, and you got this amazing skill and you decided to turn it into a school where you want other people to have access to the same ability to create stories through film. And now, here we are with the new digital age. What is it, how can we support the growth of this field? Visual effects being used in film and...
I think for now, I think all newcomers or people who are trying to get into the industry, what they can do is take advantage of the platforms that are available. Like I said, some of these platforms are free. Like Blackmagic Fusion is completely free. Or the starter package of for VFX, so you can do quite a lot with it. And there's also other many platforms that you can use to create visual effects. But then again, even the game engines as well, there's a free version for each. Unreal, Unity, choose your poison and start learning. Yeah.
Okay, good. Andrew?
I guess for me the main thing I think is I would encourage filmmakers to explore different themes in their films as opposed to the typical films which would not support VFX artists. Because if you're constantly doing documentaries, you know, or dramas, things which the only effect is color correction, then the industry really won't grow. So, but if you do produce, because VFX artists are typically not filmmakers themselves. So if they're not provided stories which they can actively apply and even make a living from, then they'll eventually just turn to other avenues. So, because I myself know a bunch of people who started doing VFX, but it was just like a hobby because there was really no way to make money from it. Yeah, so I think it has to grow with the filmmakers also, you know, starting to explore things like sci-fi or whatever, just different avenues which enable VFX.
I'm sure Wix have something to say. Very sure. And I can almost imagine what it is. If it's not, I'll tell you what it is.
Mine will be to encourage the people creating film to create a budget.
Yes, see, I knew it.
Create a
Have a
budget for animators, for VFX. I feel like we've had this conversation before. That way, it's going to encourage them. Okay, I have to be real here. I hope it's not the budget for, oh, we really need a VFX guy. Oh, we need an animator. So you cut the budget there and there and there and there. Then join it, give them like 10K. These guys don't sleep. They don't eat well, some of them. So just, and even the machinery they use, it's really expensive. Like, just have a really good budget for them. Yeah.
And don't even forget the amount of time that they spend to get that knowledge, to be able to execute that work. It takes a lot. Andrew currently has more than 10 years experience. From the first election, was it?
20 years.
20?
21 years.
Yeah, 21 years. From getting to do Wageuzi, the first one that we are getting to see some robots just running around Kenya and having the face of the politicians who are in the running race, to currently doing 120 minutes of a full feature film, then that's an amazing feat, an amazing growth. Now, can you imagine you're offering 10K to do for you some amazing virtual reality of the Kalasha panel set or something?
As a filmmaker, I think it's important to know the process of filmmaking. The budget is dependent on the story. So once you break down the story and you're able to come up with once the story you come up with, or the things, the elements that you need included in the film, then you have to get the right departments to give you a breakdown of their budget from their section. So if it's visual effects, they will tell you this is how much it will cost. Then you budget it into the main budget of the film. So it's not something you look at after. It needs to be planned before, as soon as the breakdown is done for the script. So that should be the process. Ideally, that means producers need to consult the VFX artists or supervisors very early on, so that they actually budget exactly for what they need to spend to get the right effects.
Yeah.
So Andrew should not be struggling to get paid. He should have already said this is how much it's gonna cost, and and it's allocated.
And even when, because at times, most of the time, for a very long time, and I'm sure David Alex can attest to this, and Andrew, we always approached last minute. The film is launching in 2 days' time, then you're being told, by the way, we need to fix this. Then you're left like, where didn't you have it in mind before? Didn't you communicate on what exactly is needed? Then overnight, you're working, you don't sleep, then you're being told, no, this doesn't work, we want it like this. Then you're left like you're still even making more decisions along the way, and yet your deadline is still fast approaching. So it is true that they need to do the film area needs to be consultative when they're doing their pre-productions, to make sure that everything is actually even storyboarded out and it's very clear what somebody is doing in part of the story. But David, yes?
Yeah, there is that infamous line, we'll fix it in post. And while it does have some truth to it, what people usually miss is when the director is saying we'll fix it in post, there is a VFX guy right next to him. and that VFX guy is there to advise and tell him, actually, no, we can't. We find that some productions, maybe I'd put it on artists to be more out there as well, and for directors to understand that they need someone there with them to be able to advise on what's happening. Because even lately, maybe like a year ago, I'd get a call for a project and they'd say, but we need you there on the shoot just to make sure that everything is being done right. Yeah, because something like day for night, like they want to shoot during the day and then in post you make it night. They need you to also be able to be there to tell them, okay, you should light it a certain way, make sure this and this are not there, so that we can actually fix it in post. So yeah, for one, it's to have someone on set to be able to just help with the production process.
Yeah, Dean, have you experienced anything within that area? What advice would you give to filmmakers getting into the visual effects space?
Yeah, I know a bit about visual effects. I always say the best visual effects I've ever done, you've never seen. Thought of that earlier as you were talking. I always talk about the fact that you should never do visual effects just for the sake of doing visual effects, that visual effects are only there to help drive the story. So it's back to really focusing on story and, virtual production with the idea that we have all the effects locked in and in place. That's something I've been preaching my entire career, and now suddenly we've given it a term and we're starting to teach it. I think, and also that example of the gunshot and the colorist and the visual effects, I wrote down that that's a really good example of collaboration. The thing we've been really pushing is that it's important to learn how to collaborate. You can actually learn things from other people. Some people are stronger in some areas. That's always a good place to compensate and let them help you along. I was going to say, I always talk about too the fact that the best visual effects I've ever worked on is when two scriptwriters came to me and said, we're thinking about writing a story and we think visual effects may help it. And the worst visual effects I've ever worked on was my wife's sister's barber shot this, can you make it work? So it kind of goes back to the fix it in post concept. To me, that's the most expensive phrase in filmmaking I've ever heard, is fix it in post. Lots of times I'll be standing on set and they'll say something like that, and I'll say, how much do I actually have to charge you to convince you that you're better off shooting it again?
And so I'd like to pose this to Andrew. How do you think we can be able to get people to see their potential in the industry? What are some of the ways we can do that? Like to get into like visual effects and all. How can we do that?
Maybe Dennis,
Yes.
before even Andrew speaks, I would really love for Andrew to tell us what he's done, because I think he's one of the most underrated designers, 3D designers. His profile, people will be shocked.
Here's your airtime.
So, okay. Generally, I'm a 3D animator as well as a game developer with a passion for filmmaking. So I use those avenues to tell stories. So you mentioned there's a political animation I had done in 2011 called Wageuzi, which was based on the elections, yes. So that's, I guess, kind of where people started to know about me. In 2016, I started a YouTube channel called Hero Smashers, which was just based on, it was a passion project, based on Marvel, DC characters fighting each other.
Manga.
Sorry?
In Japanese manga.
A little bit of that. Just out of my love for superheroes. The channel blew up. One video has almost 300 million views. The overall channel has about 500 million views. It's not known so much in Kenya because it blew up outside of the place. And most recently there's a film which I just completed which took 1.5 years. It's a feature film based on African superheroes trying to combine African mythology with sci-fi. So it's a 1 hour, 20-minute fully animated film done in Unreal Engine, of which I believe this is the first feature film done in a real-time engine on the planet, literally on the planet. So that's something which...
That's groundbreaking.
So hoping to launch it September, although a trailer is coming in a week or so. Just waiting for elections to play out and, see what happens.
Awesome. Now, we go. Okay, so Andrew, back to the initial, that's really being able to celebrate what you have been able to do and accomplish. You've been at the forefront of really pushing the industry. And now even not only on a local level, when you started off with Wageuzi, and even the game project, Nairobi X. Just say even a bit now, you mentioned about game development, but you didn't mention about Nairobi
X. I forgot about, so in 2014 I released a video game called Nairobi X, which was based on an alien invasion in Nairobi. Huh? Yes, so the invasion actually takes place in KICC.
Just outside there.
Yeah, because I got tired of seeing aliens in New York and London. It's like, do they not come to Africa? We have the resources. Everyone else came to Africa.
Yes, so we survived.
Yeah, so there was that as well. So sometimes I kind of oscillate between film, gaming, that kind of thing. But right now I'm using game technology to make films.
And an interesting fact that when he was trying to do the activation of Nairobi X, he actually broke the emerging technology at that time. Because the platform you are using ended up failing because it had too many subscribers checking in.
Yeah, so the mobile version, there was a PC and a mobile version of the game. For the mobile, we were using a short code, so you send an SMS to a certain short code and you pay basically to pay for the game. And too many people tried to get it at once and broke this, the system.
Yeah. They are not ready for it.
We were not also ready for the response, so we ended up just putting it on Google Play. So although a lot of things have changed since 2014, so now it's much easier to, the M-Pesa API was not available. If it was now, it would be much easier to monetize.
Yeah, true. And so how do we get to now help people get to see these things that that has the potential to be done here locally? Because most of the time guys are going outside, going to India, going to South Africa, exporting all these opportunities. But how would you say we can be able to showcase what people are able to do? The animators, the game developers.
For one, I think even this forum is very helpful because I'm seeing students from high school from different places. Yeah. They can see possibility before they even finish high school. Yeah. Not just the typical career paths are viable. Now you can make money doing animation and games right here in Kenya. So this platform has value for that, as well as having an association, which is what we are starting to do. The Association of Animation Artists. Because when you're a group, you're also taken more seriously. You can set standards of, let's say, pricing, quality standards. So animators are not seen as just random guys doing stuff in their bedroom. Those two things I think are really valuable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And David, Alex, what would you say? How do we get to showcase some of these things to people? What the potential of the industry?
I think it's out there. What we need more of in order to just help the industry grow is people aiming more for like senior positions, if that makes sense. Someone who can be at the top and then bring together all the animators to work together in one project. I feel like we don't have enough of that. And this mainly because people are just used to working on their own or in small groups. So when it comes to a call to action to have people as leaders and as in senior positions, we could use more of those. But I think Andrew's actually said a good point. We have young guys here who are aspiring to be animators and to work in the industry. So they're the ones who also have that ability to start early, start understanding the system early, start getting the expectations and understanding what's expected of them earlier. And so that gives them even more room in the future to be able to grow into the artist we need.
Okay, okay. Dean, I'm going to twist the question slightly, but within the same area. What are some of the ways, okay, let me put it in a production sense. So for example, Game of Thrones, they want to do this amazing scene. How do they find out that whether the technology is ready? Where do they get that information? How do they know how that this persons can be able to do something like this and we can actually trust them to do that? What have you seen within the industry that would be a way for that to happen? Then Wilfred, you can chime in after Dean is done on the same.
Yeah, my comment was going to be, how do we make visual effects grow? How do we make the industry grow? And I think it goes back to, making sure that we budget for it, and also making sure that there are people willing to invest in those types of projects. I think that's the thing that holds every entrepreneur back, every startup, is you need to have investment to take on these challenges. And certainly Game of Thrones never had to worry about budget, probably one of the highest budgeted television series ever. And there was a lot of clever people like me, including someone who I gave them their first break in the industry, that stay on top of the technology. Like I said, we learn about it every day. They also worked with the greatest visual effects companies around the world. So I imagine a couple of phone calls and you find out exactly what they're saying they can do. And if they're have a reputation and have the same goals that you do, they can get it done. It's basically, there's nothing that's impossible. It's just a matter of time and money.
Okay. And also meaning that people need to put their work out there to be able to be visible and to be seen that this is what...
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is I was going to say that we've sort of worked around talking about the pandemic, but it certainly was the animation and visual effects companies were already very much virtual. We've been working across continents for decades, but the interesting thing is that the talent pool has suddenly opened up, because now if I want to work with Pixar, I don't necessarily have to move to San Francisco. I can work from anywhere in the world. And so you'd be really surprised the number of people that have approached me that I thought, oh, I'll never be in a position to hire somebody with that talent, simply because we can all now work virtual. So in a lot of ways, it puts the artists in Africa and Kenya on the same playing field with all the other beginning artists in the industry.
So which means that they also have an opportunity to be able to work on those Game of Thrones or whatever other major productions there are. Interesting.
And it may not be Game of Thrones anymore. I think our panel has pretty much said, look, you can do some pretty amazing stuff on an independent project. And the distribution area is equalized as well, because we can all put it on YouTube. So to be successful there is a whole nother story. But you have the potential of getting it out there for people to see.
And an interesting fact, the person, one of the matte painters from James Cameron movie Avatar, who's Kenyan, and she was working in the UK at some point, and then when they were doing the final season of Game of Thrones, she actually came to Kenya and was working from here for some time, up until the final end of the production. That just shows that our internet and our infrastructure is already stable enough to be able to compete globally. I mean, and even look at our internet link with where Dean is, and actually, Dean, where are you? And Wilfred, where are you?
I'm in New York.
Yeah. Wilfred?
I'm currently in the UK right now.
See? Now, and we are having a live discussion, no lag, like, hello, are you there? Can you hear me? No, it's there. So if the potential is already there, that just means the platform is there to share our knowledge, and our abilities. Yeah, Wilfred?
Yeah, I actually was going to say that the lady who did Game of Thrones is from Kenya and now moved from US and Canada. I think she's rated about maybe number 5 best matte painter in the world, and she's from Kenya. And we have to, so the talent is there. So as long as you really improve on your skill, and of course market yourself, like like using YouTube to showcase your showreel, like doing those things like, hero smashes and stuff, because that's what get you noticed. And from there on, you get contracts from anywhere, Hollywood, whatever. There's a shortage of talent right now everywhere for animation, gaming, visual effects. There's a shortage of brilliant talent. So we can actually, you can live in Kenya and get paid in dollars or pounds or whichever. Because also, some of the cities actually people are quitting, like London, because it's an expensive city. People are quitting jobs to prefer to go, live in the remote areas. And, so if the company is not willing to allow them to work remotely, they just quit. And these are opportunities. So it just shows that the companies are being forced to adapt into remote working. And this is going to be the future for that industry. Yeah.
Yeah, good point right there. David?
Oh yeah, just to add to that point of being able to work remotely, at ADA we have animators and illustrators working in Nigeria and South Africa. So we also use technology like file syncing. So we do our meetings in the morning on Zoom. Everyone is just there. It's like we're not even in different countries. When someone saves a file, it's like our animator in South Africa, when he works on a file and he saves it, it just comes directly to my computer. And he just sends me a text on WhatsApp, hey, I'm done. I just open it on my end, review, give him his feedback, and he works on it for the rest of the day. So yeah, there's opportunities out there, and there's all these new systems and technologies. Fiber internet is really, really fast now, so it becomes very easy for you just to work from a different country, as if you're even in the same country. Yeah. Maybe time zones is where things get complicated, but yeah.
Like Dean, it should be around, it's really late right now, yeah? Dean, what time is it there?
5 o'clock in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was thinking earlier when we talked about, work and lifestyle, that my day starts in Kenya and the UK and ends in Australia and New Zealand. So working virtually, you really have to deal with this time zone difference, and makes it a lot harder for you to have a separate life. However, because it's virtual, sometimes throughout the day I can go and do something that I want to do as opposed to focusing on work in the middle of the workday.
Okay. Isaac?
I think from a training perspective, we need to demystify animation from the traditional way of thinking that animation is cartoons. Because the first thing that comes to someone's mind when we talk of animation, they think of cartoons. And most of them is the traditional cartoons, Tom and Jerry. But after this discussion, we found that there are so many things that animators do. And currently, because of content customization, the opportunities are there. And things like what we're talking about, visual effects. But what we need to do, especially for the student who need to join the practice, is actually show them the opportunities there in terms of what they can do, the career progressions, not only in, as the traditional cartoonist, but in terms of the whole film production. Animation is part and parcel of film, broadcast, and now visualization. Yeah, there are so many people who are working there creating visuals, architecture, health. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as we get to wrap up, I'd like to give all our panelists just 10 seconds each, just as a parting shot to end. Yeah? Okay, Weeks, you're being nominated to go fast.
So normally for every work I put out there, I normally use the hashtag, we keep it moving. This is just to encourage every single creative out there who is doing, it could be VFX, it could be gaming, it could be animation. Even when you're going through those tough times, don't stop. The bottom of one mountain is the top of another. So the fact that you're going through a tough time with a certain project, it means that you've started climbing a new mountain. So keep it moving. Don't give up. Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
I think for me, we need to have more of this, and I wish to thank KFC, and we need more collaboration between the animators themselves and between animators and the training institutions, because this is the only way we can grow. We need to be told as trainers what areas we need to focus on.
Thank you.
For me, it's to encourage anyone who wants to get into the industry. I'm seeing a lot of young guys here. If you're serious, you're welcome. Now is the best time. And for me, I consider what the alternative would have been. I just can't see myself sitting at a desk, doing accounts. That's crazy, Like as hard as the journey was, I've ended up doing what it is that my passion is, and so I will not live with the regret. For me, that's a big thing. So, karibuni industry.
For me, it would be the same thing. Just get yourself out there. Make sure you're always learning, because animation is really complicated. There's always something new to learn. There's always new technology, new tools. So keep up with them, but at the same time, just make sure you're finishing your projects, you have something to show for all the work you're doing. And yeah, most importantly, just keep learning. Yeah.
Wilfred, then Dean.
Yeah, for me, I think it's important for young animators to work together collaboratively. Just recently, we did an incubator over 6 months, where we had 15 animators working together in groups of 3, and they were able to create 2D animations, 3 to 5 minutes pilots. And for them, I think it was important to show them the power of collaboration. And they were able to work together, even with sound engineers as well, because I think sound engineering or sound design is a very key, critical part of these 3 industries or subsectors. And you have to really learn to collaborate with each other. The other place that people need to look at is what people are calling the metaverse. It might look like a joke right now, but if you're not ready for it, it's gonna overtake you like you never knew it was coming. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to create avatars, digital fashion, online shopping. Like, people will live and work in the metaverse eventually at some point. And that's why right now the industry is projected to grow at 47.6% over the next 5 years to $1.5 billion. So how much are we preparing ourselves to take advantage of this?
Great. Dean?
Well, as everyone's pointed out, it's a growing industry. You have to have a passion for it, and if you do, just do it. Just get out there and do it. Don't be afraid to collaborate with other people. Don't be afraid to get on the internet and ask questions and look at tutorials, and just realize that this is a growing industry, so the opportunities are all right at your feet.
Great. Oh, and Dean, I really like the background. This is a good choice. Really good visual effects.
I'm in the metaverse.
This ain't really you? Nice. So yeah, thank you very much, our panelists and also our audience. And I would like to encourage everyone, since you're still here, and you've been talking about the opportunities, where can we see what the animation industry is like, what is happening in the game industry? It's at the animation pavilion right here. It's right there. You can be able to interact with a couple of studios and get to meet with members of the Association of Animation Artists Kenya, whose work right now is to unite the animation industry together and be able to showcase all these things that they are doing and represent them in various areas, even the game industry. And if you want to also find out more about the association, just go to animationkenya.co.ke. animationkenya.co.ke. And for any one of you who may be thinking or seeing an opportunity to get into the game fields, you'd want to consider Africa Digital Media Institute being there, an opportunity to see games being done and even get to learn. So far, it's one of the only institutions that's giving a certificate and a diploma specifically in game development. Go check it out, have fun, and these are opportunities that are not there. When I was beginning, just like Andrew, and I was like, it seems like we have the same story. Even I used to read about game development, So go to the internet, go to some websites, and download material on game development, and then read for over 13 years. And then finally, here's an institution that you can be able to get to have that done. And the opportunities are now open in other universities that are also starting it up. So, hey, get to visit and get to see these stands. So, and also other animation, get to see what they're working on, The Last Light Born, get to see what Andrew's work is going to be like, and it will be an amazing experience for you to get to see what everyone is working on. So thank you. I've been your panelist, Dennis Muthia. I hope I was not boring. No? Okay, thank you. This is very good. All right, have a good afternoon.